Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today I did a thing. I did a thing that many of you guys had been shouting at me to do in the comment section, and some not shouting as much, some kind suggestions as well were included in those comments. But anyway, today I downloaded Mir Korabely. I think that's how you say it. It's Lesta's client. Lesta, if you don't know, was the original studio behind Warships. They were bought up by Wargaming back in the day, and they are the original studio that designed, developed, and ran Warships for, well, from its inception until a couple of years ago due to the Russian-Ukraine war. Because that war broke out, Wargaming made the call to fully leave Russia and Belarus. They sold/released their studios in Russia and Belarus. They turned all of their game services over to Lesta, who now runs the Russian quote-unquote version of World of Warplanes, World of Tanks, and World of Warships, which is Mir Korabely, which is what we are looking at today. Now, there has been a lot said about Lesta, which, when I say Lesta, I'm just referring to Mir Korabely. I just don't feel like saying that over and over throughout the course of this video. There's much said about Lesta in the previous weeks. Well, there always has been something being said about them, right? Because, well, there's always that audience, that crowd that they hate whatever it is that wargaming does, right? So Lesta has always been, being brought up in the comment section of, my videos and elsewhere in the World Warship sphere because, wargaming can do no right and Lesta does all the right, if you get what I'm saying. But it has been brought up a lot more recently because of the Waterline video and article that Wargaming put out a couple of weeks ago that was not really warmly received. So now so many more commentators have been in the comments section saying, oh, and you can see why Lesta is a superior product now, can't you, Sealord, or whoever it is that they're referring to. So I finally gave in and decided to dive on into Mir Korabely, or again, however you say the thing, and check it out. So join me, if you will, as we look at the game that some are saying is going to cause a mass exodus, or is already causing a quote-unquote mass exodus to Russia, if you will, from World of Warships. So, I had little to no idea what was going on the Lesta clients before doing this video. For a while after the split, I kept up with both versions of the game, did videos on, things that were announced for both versions of the game, because for a while there, things were pretty much lockstep with both clients. But now that we're a couple of years into this divorce, things have certainly changed in terms of the similarity between the two games. So let's get on into it. So first off, the first thing I will admit right away is that the Lesta client does definitely look better, in my opinion. I don't know what exactly it is that's going on with the graphics, but overall, the game, the environment, it just looks better. I'm not sure if they updated their lighting engine or did some, changes to how the game's lit. But when I was playing through the Russian battleships, I was like, oh my god, this game looks so good. The colors pop a lot more. Things don't look as not suppressed, but not as, it just looks a lot more vibrant from what I've seen. And again, I'm not sure if that's just they've redone the lighting, or maybe they touched up some of the lower tier maps and that Wargaming hasn't. But the game does definitely look better in that regards, what I noticed right away. The second thing that looks a lot better is the HUD. The in-game HUD has been excellently updated over here on the Lesta client. You can see, the cap icons, just like again the HUD in general. It's all very clean. It's not that like old HUD that just keeps getting upscaled. Like I'm running in 4K here, and you can look at like the cap icons at the top, and the progress bars and such, and the team lineups. It's all very clean, very clear cut. If you look at those same icons in the Warships version, or I should just say Warships, you can tell that like they're not, icons that were meant to be used with 4K resolution. They still look very pixely in some places. They look rough. This looks nice and clean and like it was meant to run in 4K. As someone that runs in 4K a lot, I really appreciate it that, the devs took time to clean all this up. So the HUD's more modern. It looks better. Same with the minimap and all that jazz. Like that right there, it all looks better. Also, it sounds different. Sounds like they've done something with the sound engine. You get more muffled gunshots when you're zoomed in. The sound when you're not zoomed in too sounds like it's been updated. I know Wargaming did their own sprucing up to the audio with Warships as well, which I think sounds really nice. But this sounds different, and it definitely doesn't sound worse. I'm not sure if it sounds better. It's a different audio style. Maybe I still have some tweaking to do with my audio settings, but it sounds a little bit different. But not bad, not good, just different. I like how it sounds, but it's not worse or it's not better, but that's just, a difference there for sure. And you can certainly hear it in the background as the background footage rolls. So second, something that gets brought up all the time in the comments when Lesta gets brought up. It's like, oh, Sealord, you got to see what they're adding in on the over at Lesta, the Russian battle cruisers, the Pan-Asian battleships, yada yada, so forth and so on. And hey, those German light cruisers you want, they got them over there. So sure enough, as I'm looking through the tech tree, there is certainly different ships and more unique ships too. There is indeed a line of Russian battle cruisers that looks pretty cool. There is indeed a line of Pan-Asian battleships. That's pretty cool as well. They do have the German light cruisers that that it appears that the Dutch light cruisers are based off of. That's pretty cool. Again, don't see why we're getting, the Dutch light cruisers that, are clearly based off of these guys, right? But whatever, Lesta's got them as well. There's also things like a U.S. destroyer split. And look, the IJN support CVs are here as well, among other additions to the game. And yes, this is certainly more unique, I would say, than what we've been getting on World of Warships, because we have been getting a lot of, copy-paste ships with very minimal changes between the two, if you will. Granted, if you do take a closer look at these models on Lesta's client, it is not as unique as you might be led to believe. You can definitely, if you take a long look at it, realize, oh wait, there's some kit bashing going on here. Like, I recognize that Vladivostok hull, or ooh, that really looks like the Elbing hull on that German light cruiser, with some different superstructures, some different guns going on, along with, of course, some new assets as well. Very much not unlike what Wargaming did with the Pan-American battleships. It's the British battle cruiser hulls with some, modifications going on here and there. So not quite as unique as I was led to believe. Like Lesta's completely making completely new assets every time they're releasing one of these lines. No, I wouldn't say completely new assets, sure, but like a lot of the models for these ships have been recycled, which again, it makes perfect sense for both studios to do with the thousands of man hours they get dumped into making these assets. Of course, you want to reuse them. Makes perfect sense, but don't act like one's doing something that the other one's not. But again, there are some genuine new models in this version that we most certainly do not have over on the Wargaming side of things. We'll get to that in a second. So those are all things that are pretty cool. And also, too, from that I've been told from people that I trust, the way that, Lesta runs some of the events, they're a little bit more generous with like doubloons and things like that, with handing those out, although Wargaming does hand out their fair share of those as well, along with a ton of premium time. Granted, with, the evening I spent with Lesta, I did get a day or two of premium out of it as well. So there is that. But that's all cool. I like that. The game looks good. The HUD's been updated, something that Wargaming desperately needs to do, both in game and in port. There's been some type of tweaking with the graphics going on here too. It looks good. There certainly is, again, quite a nice bit of unique lines here. But there's a lot that I don't like. So, these guys, for instance, super submarines. That's right. Not only are there submarines still in the game, but they're super subs now. Thank God we haven't got that on Wargaming side yet. So, yeah, that's not something I want to see ever. Oh, also, shotgunning still a thing on the Lesta client. They did not get the nerf to the range, to the arming range like we did with our submarine. So, yeah. 2, behold, the pay-to-win combat flags we did a whole video about a while ago. They made it through. They're in the game. The way these combat signal flags work is that unlike our flags, where you just get the flag, slap it on your ship, the flags are tiered, just like the economic bonuses. So you have flags that are cheap, that do give you a boost to your combat in terms of speed, secondary, your tankiness, they cut up into different sections as you can see here, so forth and so on, right? And there's different tiers. You have the cheap ones that do give you a bit of a buff, but you can buy the expensive ones that give you an even bigger buff, and there is quite a substantial difference between the bottom the bottom tier and the top tier as well. So yeah, I think in most cases the bottom tier is about half as effective as the top tier. So, yeah, I don't like that. That's a major, major pay-to-win element. That's terrible in my mind. And also, there are way more super ships in general in this game. They have been going hard into the sauce with the super ships over here on Lesta. Also, the super ships on Lesta, they have an additional upgrade slot, because just being a super ship wasn't enough. So now you get an additional upgrade slot that makes it even more powerful, because why not, right? So, I'm not a big fan of super ships. I know there's plenty of players on the Wargaming side of things that do like them, and maybe that is something that's drawing them over there. But I just don't think it's cool that there's these class of ships that if you're okay with losing an insane amount of doubloons in every match, you have a straight up overpowered ship to go beat down on tier 10 and tier 9s with, and Lesta seems to be embracing that full force. What we see here, just looking through the tech trees, and again the sheer amount of super ships. So okay, all that's going on the Lesta side of things. Yes, the game looks better. Yes, again, there's some, I would argue, more interesting tech lines than what we've gotten out of Wargaming. Again, we have gotten some pretty cool ones out of Wargaming. Some ones that are definitely in my ballpark, like the Libertad, even though, yes, I believe it's overpowered, but secondary brawling dreadnought style battleships, those are pretty cool. But what's pretty clear is that these two games have very different directions, especially with the Waterline update that we got from Wargaming here in the past couple of weeks. They're leaning more into the let's more gimmicks, more arcadey side of things, classified documents. That's all something, and supposedly they're going to be making some additional announcements about it in the future. We'll see what that holds. Lesta is going, super ships, super submarines, looking like a more pay-to-win direction. Again, with super ships with the additional upgrade slot and the pay-to-win combat flags, and who knows what's else coming down, what else is coming down the pipeline as far as Lesta goes. Because again, I don't keep up with that game like I do with World of Warships, because played World of Warships a lot more. It's another thing too. Lesta, it's still based in Russia. There are still sanctions on Russia, so I'm not really sure you can really fully dive into Lesta, because one, just to get the game in English or another language that isn't Russian or Belarusian, you got to download a mod in order to get it in your native tongue. First off, so as you could probably tell, certain things aren't properly translated, shall we say, from the base version of the game to the modded version that I'm playing with the English language pack. So that can be frustrating. And two, what's really odd in my mind is that, well, there were plenty of people that spent months harassing myself and every other content creator that was still playing World of Warships after the initial Russian invasion of Ukraine. Because, well, you're playing a Russian-made game that's supporting Russia, supporting the war against Ukraine, yada yada, so forth and so on. And here we are with probably a lot of those same people now just absolutely worshiping the ground Lesta walks on and just, spending all their free time dogging on Wargaming, which, don't get me wrong, Wargaming does plenty of stuff I don't agree with. Just take a general peruse of the channel, but that's just like moments. Like, well, you sure hated, World Warships when it was ran by Lesta, but now, apparently Lesta's the holy grail of naval combat games in comparison to World Warships. That's just, are you really, criticizing the game, or are you just, a professional hater at that point? But yeah, that's just another interesting little detail there for me. But anyway, Lesta, is it this, paradise of, 20th century naval combat with all the nonsense that Wargaming's trying to shove down our throat? Well, they certainly don't have the classified documents. They certainly don't have the experimental ships. But they've got their own issues, if you will. Again, super ships, super subs. They've got hybrids over there, too. They've got that Japanese cruiser hybrid that's, the counterpart to the, I can't remember the name of it right now, but the German Tier 10 hybrid cruiser that we got. They got one of those over there. It's just Japanese as well. And, at one point they showed us, at least, some hybrid super submarines. Don't know what happened with those. Guess they haven't made it into the game yet. But they were working on them. Wargaming hasn't even said anything about that yet, which hopefully they won't. I mean, you can see how long it's been since they've introduced a new submarine line into the game. We're finally getting another one after like 2 years have transpired since the British submarines were added to the game. So, yeah. Just, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So while it's true there's some pretty neat stuff over on Lesta's client, and they are doing some pretty interesting things with like pre-dreadnoughts and breakable armor from what I've seen. I did see that is pretty interesting. I just don't think like it's a practical replacement for World Warships at this moment, just because of the real life, barriers between the rest of the world and this game. If the war comes to an end and we have, far less restrictive access to this, then at that point, then yeah, that might be something, but who knows? Wargaming might buy Lesta back. We don't know. So it's an interesting thing to look at. Nice, again, like alternate timeline of World of Warships, to take a peek at, but I don't think it's really a full-on replacement for the game just yet. And I certainly don't see, the player base leaving in droves to go to this game when, again, a lot of the player base are players that have been sticking around for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years at this point, right? You have to go and restart all over again. So there's that. But guys, it's my 2 cents on Lesta. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday and wonderful rest of your weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.